Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's video. So I've been thinking about these two components in the practice of Usui Reiki Ryoho. There's one component that is kind of the overarching aim of the practice, or the end goal, if you will, or maybe kind of like the metaphysical finish line, even though it's not a finish line. The aim of the practice, I think, is kind of the best way to put it. And it's an idea that I've covered a number of times on the channel here. It's an idea called Onsen Ritsume, and it essentially means to live one's life with a peaceful mind and a quiet body, or to progress through one's life in peace and tranquility to the best of our ability. And so what does that mean? That means in every moment of our life, to the best of our ability, we are trying to remain in peace in our mind and in our body. So these are the precepts in action, right? This is us living with each step, or embodying the precepts of Usui Reiki Ryoho. So this is the first thing that I was thinking about. How can we think about this concept of Onsen Ritsume, and how can we bring it into our life? And what does it mean? Right? What does it mean? And so I was taking this one idea and then thinking about it from the context of a tenet in Buddhism, which is the understanding of the moment. Now, a moment is a completely, infinitely small measure of time. It's not a real measure of time, but a more of a metaphysical or metaphorical understanding of a measure of time. So essentially, it is an impossibly small section of time. As soon as you think you've caught it, it's gone, right? So we can think about it as maybe like, a billionth of a second or whatever it is, impossibly small. Okay, so if we have this idea of living peacefully, and, which is Onsen Ritsume, and we're thinking about this idea of the moment, what is the significance of a moment? A moment is something that we are constantly progressing into. So a Buddhist understanding of this is that within each and every moment, we are born, we live, and then we die, only to be reborn into the next moment. Now, in my head, I was thinking like, wow, okay, these two aspects, Onsen Ritsume and each and every moment, there's an interesting link here. There's an interesting progression of ourself. And so I started to think about this from maybe a more literal perspective, or maybe a perspective that can become a little bit more tangible. And I started to think, what does this mean as we move through our life? If we are constantly moving in an understanding of Onsen Ritsume, then that means that each and every moment we move into, hopefully, we are doing that with less resistance, with more peace, with more tranquility in our mind and our body. Now, everything in the universe moves. Everything in the universe changes. Nothing is permanent. Again, another tenet of Buddhism, that everything is impermanent. And so what does that mean? Well, I think what it means is that all of our energy, all of our experience, everything you see behind me, everything here in this world, in this universe, it's all moving directionally. Now, directionally will be a human concept. It'll be a way to frame this conversation in a human context. It's not moving in a linear or tangential direction. Rather, everything is moving all the time, and everything is always changing all the time, right? So if we think about it in this regard, that me, you, everything you see behind me, nothing is the same from moment to moment, because everything is being born, living, and then dying in that moment, only to be reborn in the next moment, okay? So if that's the case, then here's a real-world way to play that out as well. As you're listening to this video, if you could look at a billionth of a second, you are absolutely not the same person. You are changing, cells are dying, cells are being born, things are growing, things are shedding. All of these things are changing in you, so you are unequivocally not the same person from each and every moment. So if we have this idea of the impermanence of all things, that everything is changing from every single moment. Nothing is ever the same, even on an infinitely small time frame. If we work with that idea and we look at Onsen Ritsume and we combine them together, it got me thinking about the idea of aging. Now, this is where this video will admittedly be a thought experiment, okay? This is going to be more of a metaphysical thought experiment on aging, but I think, and if you hear me out, I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion on the idea of aging. I'm working through this myself, by the way, as I'm giving you this video, as I'm thinking about it. So it's very much a work in progress, kind of a philosophical reflection on the idea of aging. So what am I trying to get at here? Well, of course, we know things like environmental factors, stress, these types of things, pollution, the food we eat, all of these things play a huge role in our aging and in our longevity. But what role does Reiki play? What role does Onsen Ritsume play? What role does the understanding of each and every moment play? That's what I wanted to try to tackle and kind of address in this thought experiment. So here's my thinking. It got me to think about the blue zones on the planet. Maybe you've heard about these areas, Sardinia, Okinawa. There's many places around the world where people, on average, have a much higher concentration, or chance anyways, of reaching 100 plus years of age. And all of these places, they have some things in common. Their diet is very clean. In particular, they have a lot of social interactions. Social connectivity is very important. And working on the ground, working with the earth, farming, being outdoors, tending your flocks of sheep, for instance, all of that stuff is super important in longevity. So thinking about the blue zones and thinking about how these people are very social, thinking about how they are very much connected to their ground, to the earth, thinking how they are eating the produce and the products that are coming most likely regional from where they are, that started to reflect back on this idea of Onsen Ritsume. Think about somebody who is living in a culture where it is steeped in social connectivity. You know everybody around you, you have a big web of support, you are existing as a team, as it were, right? Now, we know, and there's ample evidence to show this, that we know that isolation or solitude in many ways ages people. It exaggerates our aging and it brings death even closer. And the idea then of all these social connections, this is an extender of life. So why might that be the case? And again, this is a thought experiment, right? I'm not trying to say that these things are factual, but I think all of this does make sense. In my opinion, if I'm existing in a life where I have a wide social network of honest friends, right, of people who care about me, of people who I care about, then this helps me to arise into each and every moment, because each and every moment is supported and nurtured and cherished with other people that I care about and that care about me. So there's this mutual support that as we move through life, we know we're not doing this alone. Now, what about the working the ground? What about eating the food that is local and from your area and all these things? Again, this is the ability to arise in the moment. I love tending this garden here in France. This is an amazing opportunity for me to practice a meditation, right? An engagement with something in the moment. When I'm focused on gardening work, and I'm sure many of you tend to garden, or you might be doing yard work or whatever it might be, we all know how relaxing that is because it's helping us to arise in each and every moment. It's helping us to be present. So being present here and now, right here, right now, this is the precepts in action. This is the idea of Onsen Ritsume in action. So gelling all of these ideas together, what evidence do we have from the blue zones? What do we gain from maybe trying to live the way that people in these blue zones live? If we put these as kind of our real world examples, our tangible, backed by rigorous scientific investigation, all of this we know is very factual. If we take some of these ideas and then bring it into our lives and our practice, maybe we can see an idea surrounding age and surrounding the continuation or the exasperation of the rate in which we age. So here's how I've tried to put all this together, okay? So bear with me, right? This is a little bit of a still a work in progress, but I think this makes sense. If we are arising into each and every moment, if in each and every moment we are never the same, right? So cells have died, cells are born, and so on. And if we are trying to move with the energy of the universe via the precepts or via the understanding of Onsen Ritsume, then this means that in each and every moment that I exist, hopefully, I can progress into those moments without thinking about the past, without being attached to the past, right? Without the memories or the ruminations or the recycling of old memories or things that are, kind of bringing me down or hooking me into traumas or whatever. And I think we all know that. I think we all know this idea that, if we can be present right now, like Thich Nhat Hanh talks about all the time, for instance, Eckhart Tolle, so many people talking about the presence and the power of now, being here right now. We get that. I think that's well understood. Why is that so important? Well, here's what I'm thinking about with this whole kind of gelled narrative. If something bad happens to me right now, okay, so if I have a trauma that comes up or if I have, a challenging moment in my life or whatever, I'm still as a body and as a being, and the universe is still as a universe moving forward. Energy is constantly moving, right? In all directions, but we can say from a human context again, in one direction moving forward. So we can think about kind of a linear movement of our existence. So if I am existing in Onsen Ritsume, and then I have a terrible moment or a difficult moment or a stressful moment or whatever, in that moment, it's pretty easy to think about how part of us will be left in that space in time, right? Here's what I mean by that. I think we can probably all remember a moment in our life where, things were really difficult or whatever. If you think back on it, you think back on a stressful moment, you might actually be able to be there. You might actually be able to remember the smells, the feelings in your body, or it might be a triggering moment. You might hear something, see something that triggers a fear response, an emotional response, an anxiety response. All of those things, that's what I'm talking about. If something really stressful happens to us, then it's almost as if a part of us is left in that moment. It's like that moment is frozen and we are continuing forward with I'll be a little bit exaggeratory here for the sake of the video, but it's almost as if a piece of our body and our soul are trapped in that moment in the past, okay? So to me, I'm thinking about it like this, that if we want to prolong our life, if we want to slow down aging, of course, all those environmental factors, your diet and all these types of things, stress, these are huge contributing factors to it. But if we add this one on, I think it gives a very interesting idea. If I'm moving forward with the energy of all things, but there are chunks of me left in the past, then imagine what that's doing. My whole being is not moving forward. Maybe 99%, metaphorically, I'm giving just random numbers here, but most of me is moving forward, but not all of me. There's part of me that's still ruminating and stuck on the past. So when we have these stressful moments, for instance, anxiety-driven moments, or we have traumas that lead to fear or anger or whatever it might be, those emotions are trapped in certain areas of the body. For instance, anger is processed by and worked on in the liver. So if we have opportunities in our life that constantly bring forward situations that produce anger inside of us, then there are parts of us that are stuck in the past, constantly circling around in the emotion of anger. And if that's not worked on, then it's almost as if a part of, again, I'm speaking metaphorically here, but in some ways, I think it's almost literal. If there's an event in our past that triggers the emotion of anger, then it's as if we leave part of our liver. I know that might sound weird, but it's like as if we leave part of our liver in the past. So as we move forward, with the evolution and the movement of all things, you can think about like most of our liver is moving forward. And so if that's the case, and if we're not moving forward as a whole, then we're suffering. We're attaching to the past. So the liver is not fully free to release. It's not fully free to just exist and restore itself, because a part of it is stuck in the past. Okay? So where do we see this? Like, what type of evidence do we have for this? Well, every single night when we go to sleep. This is what really got me thinking as well. You know, when I sleep, the notion of Bruce drops away. My past drops away. My ideas and expectations on the future drop away. Everything in this frame of reference just simply evaporates. It's simply not there. And when all of those things are gone, notice what happens. We heal, right? We heal not only bit by bit or slowly, we heal very, very rapidly. Everybody knows that feeling. Like you go to bed sick, you wake up, you feel better, right? It furthers your healing. It speeds up your healing. A good rest is the way that we heal. A good rest allows us, when we're deeply asleep, it allows us the opportunity to fully arise with each and every moment. By definition, it allows us to fully be present with Onsen Ritsumei, or the precepts of Reiki. It allows every aspect of our being to move seamlessly with the universe. So if we look at it in this perspective, then maybe we can see right here and right now. We can see the hooks that we have in the past. We can see our attachments to the past. And we can see maybe how those hooks are keeping us in a state of suffering. How those hooks are keeping certain organs from functioning properly. They're keeping certain aspects of our being, of our body, from functioning properly. Because it's as if all of our being is trying to move forward, but there's these little claws, these little hooks that are pulling aspects of you back. And because of that, that part of our body or our mind or our spirit is suffering. So what can we do with this understanding? Well, it's interesting then going back to these blue zones. Think about how really in-depth, supportive, and nurturing social webs can be. So if you've got a really big social network and people are there looking out for you and helping you and so on, then it helps to alleviate some of those hooks, right? You had a stressful moment in your past. Who better to help you relieve that than a really supportive social network where you can talk it through, air it out, and soothe it over, and eventually it detaches. It's supportive. The same with working in the field, working with the earth. You've got all these stressful moments in your past. They probably don't exist when you're working with your hands in the earth, in your garden, tending your flock, whatever it might be. They might be there. You might still be ruminating about them and thinking about them, but they're probably not as strong. So it softens our attachment to the past a little bit further. It's a really interesting concept to me because Reiki aims to provide such a space on a daily basis or in every practice. If we simply let go of the idea that Reiki is healing, then in reality what we do is we work to let go of all of these backward-facing attachments in our past. The memories of our trauma, the physical ramifications of our experiences, any of these things are softened if we can let go during a session, if we can let go in the practice, right? And we can simply surrender. Because if we surrender in the practice, then again, by definition, that means that we are moving forward with the energy of the universe, and we're moving forward with less attachments, with less recognition of the past. I'm reminded about this as I was kind of gelling together this big narrative here on this idea on aging and how Onsen Ritsumei and the precepts and being arising in each moment and all of these things come together to help us understand this. I was thinking about this, and then I was thinking about the deity Fudomyo. And quite often in Japan, you can see Fudomyo. Fudomyo is the immovable wisdom king. And behind him, he's got this massive fire. I'll put a photo here for you to see. So he's got this massive fire, a sword, and a rope. Now, if you've never seen him before, you can see it looks pretty wrathful. He looks pretty angry. But indeed, he's actually compassion. He's full compassion. And the sword is the ability to cut through our ignorance. It's the ability to cut those things that are attaching us in the past. And the lasso is very interesting. The rope is the ability to kind of drag those things forward so they can be seen. So imagine you've got kind of all of these negative personal characteristics or whatever they may be. It's as if Fudo's rope lassos them together, cinches them up, and brings them to your forefront so you can see it. So then you can use the sword to cut it and then the fire to let go of it. And I'm further understanding this from so many of the seated Buddhas that we see, maybe Toji Temple or the one that I have in my little meditation area. All around these Buddhas, behind them is a large kind of tapestry or mural or wall of flames. And quite often in those flames, you can see little seated Buddhas. And it got me wondering, what if that's what that really means? Now, I know there's so many ways to interpret it. It's just a guess. It's just an interpretation. But I think it's right there for us. Why all those little seated Buddhas? Well, maybe they represent the ability for us to look in the past, and where there used to be attachments, where there used to be hooks of our suffering, we can now see a moment where we've let go of those and we've shown the light of the Buddha into those moments of our suffering. And so with more and more and more of those attachments in our past, with those let go, then we simply move in and arise in to each and every moment right now. All of our organs, all of our body, all of our mind, all of our spirit, all of our ethos is fully there and fully understanding Onsen Ritsume. And so if we move in that direction, then how can we age at the same rate? We don't have any of the suffering or the attachments to the past. I'm sure this is probably going to resonate as well. And it was another thing that I was thinking about with this. You've probably seen so many people in your life that are maybe in a really stressful situation, maybe a family situation, a work situation, whatever it may be, and they're aging so quickly. Or you can see people who are bitter, who are just really clinging to the past, who won't let go of all this stuff, woe is me, all these types of things, and they embody that suffering. You can see it in their face and the way they carry themselves. They're really, really struggling, right? I'm sure you can see people like that. And now, on the contrary, I'm sure you can also see people who have worked to let go of those things, who have worked through maybe therapy or Reiki or whatever it might be to move beyond the attachments and the shackling of the self. And when people do that, and you see them maybe after 6 months or a year or whatever it is, they always look younger, right? They look like they are more full, they're more vibrant, they're more healthy. I think this is what it is. I think what they've done is they've taken away those attachments in the past, and now they're moving with more of their complete being forward with the energy of all things. If we move, and it's impossible to do this fully, but if we move to the best of our ability with as much freedom in each and every moment as we possibly can, if we arise in each and every moment to the best of our ability, then that means that all of our ethos, all of our mind, body, and spirit is moving with less attachment and less suffering. That's Reiki, right? That's the ethos or the understanding of Daikomyo, or Onsen Ritsume, or the precepts in action. It's a really beautiful way to look at these things, I think. And I think it makes a lot of sense because we can see the real world evidence all around us. So, I apologize if this is a bit metaphysical. It's still a work in progress, but I really do think that it makes sense. And I wanted to bring this to the video for this week because I'm super excited to hear about your comments. So let me know what you think about this idea. Build on the theory, expand on it. Tell me what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts. So let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate it. As always, thank you so much for the support of the channel, everybody. I do hope it's helping you. I hope it's helping your practice. I hope it's helping your understanding with Reiki and your clarity of Usui Reiki Ryoho. So until next time, everybody, as always, be well and In Gassho to all.